our board, who you guys can see in the grid mode. And I just want to say good morning to all of you all, and I'm so glad that you're here and that we get to meet with you. It's kind of strange circumstances, but here we are, and I think we've managed to get through this in the best way possible. And I've connected with almost as many people now as I ever have. Um, and I want to get things started so we can get right into questions from the membership. I want to stick out a couple of thank yous real quick. First of all, is Paul Schimminger, who has done a tremendous amount of work leading the team to get us to where we are right now, and his staff, Eddie Huffman and Amy Beth Hale and Casey Campbell and Ethan Charles, have really done an immense amount of work. And I get to see the tip of the iceberg, and every now and then I get to peek underneath to see what these guys are doing, and it's nothing more than a bunch of spinning plates, and they are doing very well at keeping everything going. We've also got an army of volunteers that make IBMA work, especially for all the committees that do all the heavy lifting for us through the years for managing committees and handling our awards and the awards programs like the Momentum Award Show, our industry awards, and our Straight Up Award Show that we had last night. That's a lot of volunteers that do a lot of work, and I'm very thankful to be associated with all of them. They really do us well. And right now, what I'd like to do is tell you that if you want to ask a question for the board, we're going to have a question session coming up. I'm going to get Paul to give a couple of updates from him and a couple from some board members. But then you'll be able to ask a question in the chat there on Swapcard. And then Eddie Huffman is going to copy the chat and give it to us where we can see it, and we'll be able to respond to your questions. So, real quick, Paul, you want to give us a rundown of where we stand?
Sure. Thanks, Ben. Hello, everybody. It's great to almost see you today. And yes, it's been an odd year, and I hope that you are enjoying World of Bluegrass in its virtual glory as you've seen it. And I have to echo Ben's comments about giving kudos to staff. With Eddie. Eddie's done an amazing job. Amy Beth, Casey, Ethan, they please do reach out and thank them for all their work. They've moved a mountain here to deliver World of Bluegrass as we have. I don't know of any other music organization that has delivered this broad of an event. Now that we've been in this whole COVID situation, everybody's going to virtual, but this one was a bit aspirational from the beginning, and they deserve a lot of credit for that. And as do the producers of so many of the aspects of this week. Joanne Gardner Lowell, from the award show last night. I think you all saw it, and she deserves huge praise for her tremendous work, and the entire crew there. Trisha Tubbs and Chris Keenan for their work on the Momentum and Industry Awards. It's incredible. So, I appreciate everybody there, all the committees. Ben talked about the volunteers. There's just way too many to name at this point. And what's really been interesting is, while we would all love to gather in Raleigh and jam and hang out, and we look forward to that next year, there's some really interesting aspects when you look at the engagement of people in this particular format. We have been seeing about 60 to 70 participants in every session during the conference, way more than you would typically see in live, because there are other things to do. There are diversions about going jamming or sleeping or whatever, but now people are really engaged, and that's awesome. The showcases have been getting about 450 people per set. And you just don't see that live in Raleigh, again, for the same reasons. Overall, we have about just under 500 conference attendees. The exhibit hall, which has been something of a bit of a leap of faith for a lot of people as to how do you have a virtual exhibit hall, we have seen between 12,000 to 13,000 visits to the exhibit hall, which it surprised even me in that realm. So I think that's great, and I think the content has been wonderful. The education committee and so many people deserve credit for that. I like having the opening sessions, which have been powerful, the way to start off the day. From the donation standpoint, clearly, as you've seen throughout the week, soliciting donations from our members, participants, people dialing in has been an important aspect of this week. This is a tough week for everybody or a tough year for everybody in the industry, and the IBMA is certainly right along there with you. And there's a significant shortfall in revenue for this association. So having those donations coming in and the PNC match has been really a blessing through it all. And I know we're over $40,000 in donations so far, and I hope the cards and letters keep on coming in. So just kudos, thank you for everybody, and turn it back over to you, Ben. Thanks.
Thank you, Paul, for the update. I really appreciate it. I know that we're going to be working on getting some numbers for attendance as soon as we can, and Paul will get that to the board, and we'll get that out to the membership. I'd like to take a moment and introduce a couple people who are working on some initiatives here at IBMA, and then we'll get right to some questions. Ashley Moyer has been leading our Women's Council initiative. Ashley, can you address just briefly what you guys have been up to?
Hi, Ben, of course. Good morning, everyone. Of course, I have to give credit to my co-conspirator, Michelle Concession down there. She's been with me helping plan these Women's Council meetings for the last 3 years in Raleigh and virtually this year. This year was fantastic. I think we had double the attendees this year than we've had in years past. And I think, as Paul was mentioning, it does have to do with the fact that it's virtual and there's not as much going on. People don't have other things that they need to be at. So when Michelle and I were sitting down to plan, some of the topics for the Women's Council meeting this year, obviously COVID came to mind. So one of the things that we focused on in this meeting was, how are you adapting? How are you doing in these difficult times? Which got us thinking that we should be having these meetings quarterly. So starting December 1st, it will be our first quarterly Zoom meeting. I've already been collecting emails from folks that said that they were interested in connecting 4 times a year. And our thought on this is, we'll be able to have conversations about things and issues happening in real time. And also it allows for people that might not be able to afford to come to the conference or can't get to Raleigh every year to join us to discuss these issues as well. So we're really looking forward to continuing these conversations more often. Michelle, I don't know if you have anything you want to add, but thank you all again for your participation at the conference this year. We really appreciate it.
That was great, Ashley. Spot on.
Okay, thank you, Ashley. Michelle, while we've got you on the line here, tell us how we're doing with our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Task Force.
Yeah, the Task Force on Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion has been very active. I'm just checking my audio settings. You can hear me okay, I assume.
Yeah, you're good.
We had a very productive DEI town hall meeting yesterday, in which we engaged a lot of voices in discussion about what's to come, much like what Ashley described for the Women's Council. The Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Task Force is trying to be more transparent about all the things we're working on. This year, of course, our board approved a budget for cultural equity training for the board and staff. So the most recent work that we've been doing is speaking with a lot of different training organizations to make a recommendation to the board about what the best approach to our education will be. So we're not just checking off a box and doing one, a training session and then we can say we did it. It's more about an ongoing education program. So we've been, I do want to thank Sarika Peters in particular on the task force, who's been very active in helping have interviews with various different organizations to find out what is the right approach for IBMA. So we'll be bringing some updates soon. And then we've started a newsletter, which I hope those of you who are interested in getting updates about will if you go into your preferences in your email settings, in your IBMA membership communication settings, you can now check a box that says you want to get updates about our efforts toward diversity, equity, and inclusion. That does not mean we won't also include things in the main newsletter. We will do that as well. But if you want the deeper nuts and bolts, and we're also going to start having more frequent open discussions about, I would call them open houses almost. We're going to have an October 22nd follow-up meeting. One of the reasons for the October 22nd follow-up meeting to yesterday also is to recognize that we have members who may not be attending World of Bluegrass who need to be part of this dialogue. So this opens up a more immediate follow-up conversation for members who may not be in attendance at the event, but would like to be part of that dialogue. There's a lot of people to thank for this ongoing work. People who in our community have been working a long time, and also more recently on the task force. I'd say the other major updates are we're trying to, participate in dialogue with other task forces. This is an initiative going across the music industry. Yesterday the Grammys, the Grammy organization had a summit on DEI. That was incredible also. We've been in touch with the ACM, the country music's, organization's task force. We've been in touch with Americans for the Arts, which is the government's sort of program for diversity, equity, inclusion in the arts. And we're trying to really understand what the best practices is and role of is a task force whose charter really is to make recommendations to the board and the organization. I think, Paul, did you want to chime in? Or
No, I had something unrelated.
Something else. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I apologize.
No, that's okay.
I thought maybe that applied to this, so I didn't want to keep you waiting.
Thanks.
That's the majority of my update. I really hope that folks will join us on October 22nd. We'll take the dialogue even further. If I missed anything, those of you who are involved, please feel free to chime in.
Thank you, Michelle. One thing I would like to do is introduce some of our newer board members, and I'm kind of on the spot here because I don't have exactly the list in front of me, but I know that it includes Christopher from La Roche in France, our new international director. We're very glad to have Christopher. He's very enthusiastic, and he also plans on working with Angelica Torre, who was an international director a couple years ago, and so we're all very excited about that. And Carolyn Hott is a new director. Christine Funk is a new director. Andrea Roberts is a new director. Darren Aldridge is a new director. I'm trying to think, who am I leaving out from the last group of people that came in? Okay, well, we'll take it to that. Anybody else who wants to chime in would be fine. Bob Webster, have you got something to add for us for broadcasters?
I do. Thanks, Ben. Just to give everybody a little quick update, if you were not at the broadcasters constituency meeting, we focused our discussion primarily on how the virus might have affected you. And the few people that are still broadcasting live in the studio have been banished to presenting their program from the basement or pre-recording their show. Some people lost their airtime. So I share that from the standpoint that may affect how many spins you get, how the charts are affected. Some people do not get hard copy CDs from record labels at their house. They go to a studio someplace. So we're working through those hiccups. So if you see a little interruption of service, the airing of some evergreen shows, you'll have some idea of why. And I don't know if Kyle may still be on the air live, but there are a lot of other people who are just recording from home.
Actually, that is not the case. I'm actually no longer doing it from the studio. As a matter of fact, since March, I've been working from home from actually this very chair. So, no, Bob, I'm in the same boat as everybody else.
Hey, I just wanted to give a shout. Chris Pandolfi, I'm so sorry I left you off the list. I knew if I got put on the spot, I would leave somebody off. But hey, I just want to say welcome to the board, and it's great to have you, and your perspective is invaluable. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben.
Let's see here. Joe Newberry, you got something for us?
Yeah, yes, sir. Give a brief update on our artists, composers, and music publishers constituency meeting yesterday. We a very good session, as you might expect. Lots of talk about how the IBMA can serve as a clearinghouse and help people do the business of music during this pandemic. And so we got a lot of input that we're going to bring back to the board. Things like safe spaces for audiences and musicians, thinking about contracts and how that's going to be going forward, and how we can help our members keep doing their great work. Darren, do you have anything else that I might be missing? Darren Aldridge was also that's also his constituency.
Sounds like you covered it pretty good. It was well
Okay.
attended. I think we had 50 or 60 on the meeting with us. Is that correct, Joe?
That's right. Yes, sir. Good to be with you all this morning.
I have to say, I've been pleasantly surprised by the level of attendance in seminars and showcases. That really warmed my heart to see that kind of interaction. Paul, did you have something you wanted to add? And then we've got a couple of questions, and I'm ready to take more questions, and we'll get to those.
Yeah, this is just one housekeeping item because I meant to mention it earlier because I'm getting questions on this a lot. For those of you who have seen the archived sessions from the conference, we're getting a lot of questions about archived performances from showcases, and I'm sure we'll get the same for festival. And I just want everybody there to know that because of music licensing issues and trying to clear hundreds of songs for this week, literally, it precludes us from having that on-demand feature for those performances. We really want to have that. We know for our international guests that the timing is not great for them to be watching our showcases and festivals. So we apologize, but there's really nothing we could do because of the music licensing restrictions that we had to accept in order to put this on. So I just want to address that in case there are any lingering questions out there about that.
Thank you, Paul. Excuse me, that's a very good point. A couple of questions that have come in. We had one early on from Debbie Hall saying, did more international people attend the conference this year? And are plans in place to continue the digital element to enhance the live version in Raleigh next year? And I would say it's probably early to call the ball on that, although it's something that I definitely think as a board we should take a look at. It's a trade-off between serving members where we can and versus wanting to see everybody in Raleigh. So it's definitely something I think we're going to be thinking about and talking about in our upcoming board meetings next year. And I just want to say, Debbie, thank you for your question. We also have a question from Lucy Weberling. What is the situation for the Leadership Bluegrass class next March? Will it happen, or will it be virtual at a reduced price? And I think it should go on in some way. Paul, do you have an update on that for us?
Yeah, we're going to be making some announcements here in the next couple of weeks on that. There's been a lot of discussions around Leadership Bluegrass, and given the current pandemic and knowing that the best way Leadership Bluegrass happens is in person, so that the camaraderie and the work together, needs to happen. Can that happen this coming year? I'm not going to announce anything right now, but there are, again, some discussions at the planning committee level that we will be announcing here in the next few weeks. So it won't take long before you know what the plans are.
Great, thank you so much. We have a Paul, just while I got you here, we have a question from Claire Armbruster about rebroadcasting these panels. And I was jotting notes down while you were talking there just a moment ago. Did you say something that could address that? Whether we can keep the panels, I guess, in perpetuity and have them someplace where they could be viewed online?
Yeah, we'll talk about that as staff, because there are some powerful panel discussions for sure. Everybody can see them now. They're archived for those who are are registered for the conference, but we can certainly share those with people later on, the general public later on. We want to make sure we keep it within the conference confines right now, because people did register for the conference, and we want to make sure that they have that access, at least for now. So we'll pick and choose. There may be some that we do want to share. There's been some special moments for, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I would agree. We have a question from the membership from Maria Wallace. Could IBMA create a forum for us to share our experience and expertise on running high-quality virtual events? As a promoter planning a live-streamed festival soon, much more modest than this, of course, I picked up some excellent tips here and there during the week, including from the Bluegrass Pride folks during the Making the Switch to Digital session, and it would be great to continue the sharing of advice and tech tips which can help artists and event producers going forward. I think that's a great idea. It's something that we could toss to the education committee, which handles putting on panels like this, and it's certainly something that I would like to see happen. I don't know if anyone else on the board here has an opinion on this. I'd like to hear it.
Yeah, hi everybody. I thought there were some very interesting examples in the constituency meeting for the events management that Claire was leading, from Bluegrass and other ways of just staying in touch with people. And indeed, the Bluegrass Pride thing was great. So like other constituencies, maybe the events and event producers constituency could have meetings through the year or something. It's not a forum, but it's a great idea.
Great, thank you. Chris Pandolfi, thanks for joining us this morning. I know you've got something that you've got to go take care of, and if anyone has a question, we'll jot it down and send it to you.
Yeah, I'm going to hang for another few minutes as long as I can.
Okay, great. Eddie, do we have any questions from the membership?
I mean, I saw a question from Lee about trying to update the user profile to subscribe to the newsletter. And I appreciate you trying to do it. And it looks like it might have been difficult. So we will follow up with you. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We will follow up with you to help you do that. I actually I was totally paying attention, but I also tried to do it myself, and it is a little challenging. So we'll come up with some instructions on how to update your preferences. Eddie or I can follow up with that. So I just want to make sure we saw your question, and if you go and log in, it does seem a little challenging. So we'll get some news out there.
Great. Sorry that one got by me. That one got by me. Thank you, Michelle. Well, we've got dead air. I feel like I need to read the weather.
Hey, Ben, I could fill in a little time here, because I know the trust fund and COVID relief has been at the forefront of people's concerns, and I can let everyone know that both the donations from folks over this year have been off the charts, but so have the applications, as you would expect. Yeah. I know in just the first few months of the pandemic and shutdown that we had over 10 times the number of applications we would get normally in a full year for the trust fund. So there's been a robust activity there, as we had hoped for too. So we certainly want people to donate, but those who are out there and suffering in our community, we want to reassure people that those resources are there to help you, and do not feel shy about that. I know our pride sometimes can get in the way of doing that, but that's what this fund is here for. And that's what the professional bluegrass community has been doing all along, is raising money for things like this, for emergency relief, whether it's medical or now COVID-19. So I wanted to let everybody know.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, we got Lee Stivers. Okay, great. I was just checking. if you're just joining us here at the IBMA Town Hall meeting this morning, I want to welcome you all. My name's Ben Surratt. I'm the board chair, and with us this morning are all the board members for IBMA. A couple have had to dive out early due to some commitments, but I want to encourage you all to ask a question, and you can do that in the chat function there on Swap Card, and then it'll be sent to us, and we'll have this time to address it here for you this morning. And so we have a question from Tristan Scroggins. What are the plans for next year, seeing as there's no guarantee that this will be fixed by then? I guess, Tristan, you're meaning COVID. By then, are we making contingency plans? And I would say certainly we are looking at this very closely, and we've got our ear on the rail here, keeping an eye on the situation as to what our options are. It might be just a little soon to be making a decision, but certainly we're going to be looking at that for next year. Paul, would you like to chime in on that?
I think you covered it. The good news is that either there are going to be one of three things are going to happen, and that is we're back to normal in September next year. Not sure we'll be totally back to normal, but at least be able to gather in September, or we won't, or there'll be some combination of, yes, we can gather, but in more limited space. The good news is now, having gone through this virtual format, we now have a template that we can utilize if we have to in some shape or form, whether it's all virtual or whether it just augments the live portion of it in Raleigh. So we've gone up a very steep learning curve for this year, and it would be helpful for next year, however that plays out.
Yeah. Okay, someone just texted me they got a question coming in, but I won't see it here for just a moment. But Ted Lehman notes that Ernie Evans live events session as a resource. You're talking. I'm assuming that Ted's talking about the panel that Ernie was on earlier this week. I didn't get to see that one, but I heard really good reports on it. If anyone else wants to chime in.
I saw it. I thought it was excellent. Certainly in everybody's minds, how to open up safely, and every place is different. At least with Ernie, he has festivals in different states, and so he's dealing with a lot of different authorities and rules and regulations and health protocols, and so he's maneuvered through that, and it was valuable that he could step up and help that discussion. And Dr. Siegelson as well, in working with, and CJ Lewandowski, who moderated it. I thought it was a great panel, and probably something we need to look at down the road as this unfolds even further, and there are new situations occurring.
Yeah. A question from Missy Rains: is there a plan for IBMA to have a statement or a stand on holding events safely, mask wearing, etc.? The panel on this was fantastic, and there was some great advice. So it's much along the lines. I think some leadership from our point of view on helping people stay safe would definitely be a worthwhile thing. Is anyone here on the board would like to chime in on that?
Well, I would just say that there was really also rich dialogue about this in the managers, agents, and publicists constituency meeting. And there was a real searching for what is the common ground and how, what kind of expectations do we have? And I know, Claire, I believe you all had discussion of that as well in the presenters session. And I like this idea. I mean, this is not me. I'm gonna receive that question as a suggestion and a good suggestion for discussion in our board meeting next week, which is, is it appropriate for IBMA to take a stand and make a statement? But I think that's a good question. So when I speak right now, I'm not speaking on behalf of the whole board, but I'm warm to that dialogue, and I think that I'd be interested to hear. Like, I think I'd love for those in the presenters constituency meeting to kind of, for us to get together with what happened in the managers, agents, and present, and I imagine the artists too, and try to come to, what are we all hoping for Bluegrass in this? I think there is an opportunity to have leadership in terms of what it means to be safe and caring for the working conditions of our artists and safety of our fans. But I'm warm to that discussion. I think it's a good suggestion.
Yeah, I've also made a note to bring that up in the board meeting next week, and it's very important. We have a question from Maria Wallace. May I ask if you already have the dates confirmed for IBMA in 2021, whether real life or virtual? And she can take that into account when planning for next year. Paul, what do we have?
Yeah, the scheduled dates for 2021 are September 28th through October 2nd. That's the standard Tuesday through Saturday that we normally plan for. As you know, this year with the virtual, we added a day on the front end just to spread out things a bit. But the official dates, September 28th through October 2nd.
Excellent. A question from Debbie Durant. Since we learned about doing a virtual conference, could we have smaller events throughout the year, also breakout rooms after sessions, so conversations could be continued? I think that's an excellent idea, and I know that a couple of our initiatives are already making plans to do that. And so the main thing is to take input from the membership and hand it off to different committees for them to look at. But we've already got some initiatives being driven from the board, specifically with the Women's Council and with the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Task Force. We're always looking for input from the membership. And I think if everyone's getting so much more comfortable with this technology and handling it, it's going to be an easier thing to do. And I think it's a good idea. And I know that we're going to be talking about it and taking it very seriously. And Chris Laquette had a question for Christopher. How is the European bluegrass scene swathing our current situation? Swathing might be a different word, but how's the bluegrass scene surviving our current situation? Have they inquired to you for relief, or have you been able to send bands or musicians to the trust fund?
Okay, hi, Chris. You need to realize that in Europe, every country has a different regime and system, more so than your individual states, I would say. For example, in France, professional musicians have a status, and if they get to a certain number of performances in a year, they have unemployment protection, health protection, etc. So the government has kind of made that a little easier for them to reach that status, and they're getting some relief. Also in Europe, most musicians, there are very few professional bluegrass musicians. So most musicians have day jobs. Those that don't, I know a lot have been doing teaching online, and they've all managed to increase their students, the number of students. In the UK, I think it's getting difficult now because they're going into a real tight situation again. And there are some more professional musicians in the UK, and it looks like things are going to get much harder for them. They haven't asked me for relief, and I haven't put anybody in touch with the trust fund. I don't know what the trust fund's position is as regards overseas musicians. I wouldn't know about that. But it's starting to get bad in terms of what the musicians are making. I know concerts are being put on and then cancelled now. There are a few going ahead with limited, like the same as you're having in the States. But each country is different, and we do have quite good social welfare protection generally across Europe.
Thank you, Christopher. And I know that you guys are struggling just as we are. And I think that outside of the normal struggle of dealing with this situation is trying to plan for the situation as to how we're going to move forward. And I think we still got some more work to do on that.
Yeah,
Apparently.
same as you. We cancelled the festival this year. We put on a virtual event, and we've set dates for next year, but nobody knows.
Yeah.
If American bands can travel to Europe, if we can, how many people we'll have, it's the same.
Yeah. I've got a statement here from Bob Webster saying that for those folks living in North Carolina, local news is that the governor of North Carolina is moving into phase 3 beginning at 5 o'clock today. So that's some good news there. It's a little more relief on the capacity at events, but it's still limited, and the long range future is still unknown. And I can certainly see why. It feels like it's a one step forward and one half step back at times. And then we have a question from Annie Beach. I just got 4 young Jam Pack members signed up as IBMA members. What benefits do they receive, such as being in conferences, etc., going forward? Paul, can you give us the rundown on that?
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you, Annie, for doing that. You continue to be the ambassador extraordinaire and getting so many young people into the music. So thank you for everything you do. You're an inspiration for all of us. So we have, as you probably know, deeply discounted youth memberships because we want people to get involved at a young age and create that habit and involvement. They would certainly get a lot of discounts around conference registrations and the like. They also get information emailed to them on an ongoing basis. So they'll be in touch with more information from the association by having their membership, et cetera. So that's the primary, the benefits of membership. We look at membership as, maybe you've heard me use it. It's not just it's not like a club where you get a decoder ring when you join. We owe you benefits for sure, but some of the main benefits are, as a member, you now are engaged in the community. You're there to help shape bluegrass music, and so having young people in there and hearing their voices and having them influence what we do is what's really important through it all. So that's an association membership is about involvement primarily, but they certainly do get discounts and more information from us than if they were not members.
And real quick, Paul, I mean, they also get to, for the awards and things like that, they can make their opinion known and then vote on those things. I don't know if you said that, but that to me is something really important.
That's a great point. Great point.
Yes, thank you, Paul. An excellent point, Christine. Catching up on some questions here. One is someone who's Missy Raines is observing the chat over there on SwapCard, which we don't see. We are getting questions through that. But based on a few comments that she's seeing in the chat, it feels that there's an interest in IBMA having a stand on COVID-19 safety protocols and events. It's also been said through Regina Durzon that this is not an issue that can or should be pushed down the road. Respectfully, time is critical on this issue as events are popping up. And I do think we need to think about addressing that. We've got to get some information from the outside to advise us on what the best way would be to proceed with something like that. But absolutely, this is very important. And I'm very concerned that a bluegrass event would become a super spreader event. We don't want to see that. And so it's on my mind a lot, just in my own personal world and how I'm living here. But I think that we do need to get some guidance, perhaps from the outside, to help us come up with some suggestions and provide some leadership on this. That's a great question, and it's certainly on everybody's mind. And one of the questions that we have been getting as a board throughout this week is how about the awards and for next year, and how the categories would be potentially adjusted. I think that we would need to take a look at that, and I don't have an opinion on it right now. I think that we as a board would get together and see what that would look like. and make a recommendation and take it from there. If anyone on the board wants to chime in on that, now would be a good time. I'm making a note here.
I'm not sure. It's a question asking, are we going to have different categories, like for different, you know, like I've obviously spoken out about doing something for progressive bluegrass and having some other categories that kind of bring in new membership and more of the jam grass and different things. Is that what they're talking about? Or I guess I'm not really sure.
Yeah, Andrea, could you address this?
What I've seen come up through a few of the panels and the discussions was just, will there possibly be any adjustments? Like, for example, that's kind of like an all-encompassing, you know, the great work that's been done, recording and touring, and you know how the bands that are nominated have lifted the level of bluegrass. Well, of course, touring really isn't a component year 2020, and also like limited numbers of music that's been released during 2020, not really numbers of albums coming out. We're having some great singles coming out, but not as normal. And that's just would that be something that might have to be heard as we get closer to voting time next year based on how this?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, that would definitely be something we would want to talk about in the board meeting and try to come up with an idea. And I think a lot of some of the things we're talking about now is going to be predicated upon what the numbers look like and what some of the overall feedback that we get from the membership that comes back to us as board members, so that when we meet, we can address them. And so thank you both for your input there. Oops, I just had a question scroll up. Rick Liatko, sorry Rick if I butchered your last name, I'm so sorry. He's an ordinary fan. And Rick has two questions. In addition to keeping up our memberships and donations to IBMA, what can ordinary fans do to help the IBMA and the bands during these times? And a second question, I think we had some folks watch the sessions and showcases this week who have never attended IBMA in person. Is there a plan to continue to identify them and engage with them and perhaps get them to become members if they aren't already? Thank you. Those are two excellent questions. And Paul, can you tackle the first question?
Sure. Yeah, Rick, you are the super fan, I have to admit. So thank you for your incredible engagement in the bluegrass industry. So yeah, and the great questions this morning. Yeah. So what else can people do? Well, I want to give you number one: buy artist CDs. You know, get their buy their projects. I mean that keeps a lot of people working. If everybody's buying projects, it's not just artists, but then it's songwriters, it's labels, it's lots of folks that are in that community. So that's number one for sure. It's maybe others have other thoughts on that too, but that to me is how you can support the community the best way possible until we have live events and can go out and spend money to do that. On question number two, Rick, absolutely. We certainly see a lot of new people looking at World of Bluegrass, participating in World of Bluegrass through this virtual lens. And it is an opportunity to invite them to Raleigh, because if they've seen the good things happening online, and hopefully they will see that once you come to Raleigh, it's that and so much more on top of it. And so we're certainly going to be engaging these people. And I know in November, we're going to have a push on membership for the IBMA. So that's all going to be part of that plan.
Great, I'm sorry, Darren, go ahead.
I'd like to add to Rick there. Everybody would agree he is a super fan, a great friend to our music. And it'd probably be worthwhile to create a panel maybe next year with some folks like Rick and let them explain how they feel about the music, the band, and what they do. I've seen and witnessed him at festivals, online. He's forever sharing everything about the bands, the festivals he attends, or the ones that he wishes to attend. He donates money, buys CDs, puts stickers up of everybody, and I know all these folks and artists on here can agree with me on that. So that might be something to discuss, and maybe have Rick and a couple other people on the panel next year talking about that and what they can do to increase more people and duplicate that.
That's a good point, Darren. And the other thing I thought of is listening to you, and you talked about how Rick and others engage, and I know Rick is active on social media, is we know how these algorithms work in Facebook world, where the more activity you have and more engagement you get, the more it pushes out to people. So unfortunately, what happens is the complaints about something actually magnifies the thing that you don't like to more and more people. So engaging in the things that you do like and pushing it out and getting that conversation going is how you push out the good stuff and really help the industry in a great way. It's kind of a, when I see the negative stuff, I'm going, well, you're defeating your own, what you're trying to achieve here by highlighting the thing you don't want, and instead of highlighting the things you do want. And I think we switch it and become positive and sharing those things that you like. That is a great way to engage in Facebook and social media in general. I see Ashley nodding her head. She's a guru on this. So
yes, no, I 100% Paul. And the only thing that I was going to add is, obviously we're all here virtually. A lot of artists have been doing their own concert live streams, whether it's socially distanced or from their home. And many of those are behind paywalls. So another great way to support artists right now, while there's not much touring happening, is to go in and watch their live streams, or even if it's just a free Facebook live stream, share it to your channel for other people to see. It all makes a difference.
I think I'd also like to add is going to their YouTube channel and liking that might get them one step closer to monetizing their YouTube channel. And you might get to see a 30-second commercial, but the artist will receive a little bit there, and going and liking them on Tidal and Spotify and all those things don't cost, the end user, doesn't cost the end user a dime, and it winds up helping the musician. So that's great. We've got a question here from Bill Foster. Now that we're all comfortable with Zoom, etc., it would be great if board members could have a similar Zoom with their constituents once or twice a year. And yes, it would be great. And that's something that we're working on and that we do want to do. And I encourage all directors to reach out to their constituencies whenever possible. And I think a couple times a year or quarterly is definitely an excellent idea. And with this platform, it's a good thing to do, and it's certainly easier to do than it would be trying to get everybody together in another way. So yes, I take that, Bill Foster. That's a great suggestion, and one that I definitely think that we should do more of. Catching up on some questions here. One from Mike Kais. Some organizations have a discounted youth or first-year membership under a given age. Is that something that IBMA can explore to encourage young people to join the organization? Ideally, these new members would stay on and renew. Paul, I know we've done some things in the past. What's the status on that for us now?
Yeah, well, thanks, Mike. The good news is we're there. We have discounted memberships for youth, and then even for those who are in college programs around bluegrass music. If you're part of one of those programs, you can have a free membership for the first year, free professional, and then highly discounted there during your college years as well. So we want to get youth early, and then when they become a college, when they're studying bluegrass music and like in college, we want to engage them as professionals for sure.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you, Mike, for your question. It's nice to get something like that folks are thinking that far ahead. Question from Jeff Luden. One challenges to streaming performances is the complexity of sync licenses. Yes, most other issues are easily solvable by common technology. And the question is, can the IBMA meet to discuss strategies for addressing the topic. And Paul, I would say you're probably the resident licensing expert, having gone through the grinder on this to get everything ready for the award show and all the showcasing.
Yeah, I would say Ashley and Michelle are also pretty well versed in it as well.
And Adam,
Adam too. Yeah, and Adam, and he's helped out us immensely. Yeah, I feel your pain, Jeff. Any expertise I've gained in this has not been one that's been easy. It's been hard fought experience with lots of scars in the process. Yes, sync licensing, when you use recorded material for streaming, is real and is a challenge, because you're reaching out to every publisher to, unless it's public domain, and yes, there are some good, public domain songs in our repertoire, but for the most part, they're still under the guys, under the control of the publishers. So you're reaching out for every single song in that world. I'm not sure how we could collectively shift the industry by having this discussion, since it is such a fragmented group, and everybody from country music and the big genres, the big commercial genres, are all facing the same issues, and they haven't moved the needle. Now, I will say this: it's also important to realize that with that challenge, there's a reason why the publishers are create that challenge, and that is there are songs, there are songwriters trying to make money, as we would hope, and these publishers are there to help monetize for the songs that have been written, the songwriters who have written those songs. And that is an important part of the ecosystem, if you will. So I don't want to demonize it. I just know it is a challenge for us when we're trying to have a streaming having number of songs, and that was clearly our issue this year with having it on demand. Now, so I'm not sure if I answer your question, but I'm not sure how I can envision our collective work to change the laws, the rules, and really the spirit of what the publishers are trying to do, because they do play an important role with our songwriters.
Is there a way, I was just, quick question, is there a way to provide for our members a list of things they need to do quickly to see, have those licenses, or something that is like a checklist? I mean, I don't know how it works, but I know if I had to go through it, if you said, okay, you got to do A, B, and C in order to get these licenses, and it'll make the process simple. And then, so I don't know if that's something that you could provide for our membership.
Yeah, and I know others on the board can certainly answer to this too. I know Adam can. I see him with thumbs up. In some ways, it's going to publishers directly, having relationships with these publishers. Obviously, when you're talking about the major genres, commercial genres, the large publishers play an enormous role, and so having those relationships at those publishers is invaluable. In the bluegrass world, it's a bit more mixed, because yes, those big publishers are involved, but then you have all the independents that create their own opportunity and challenge. The opportunity is, if it's an artist with his or her own publishing company, it's easier to get a license off of that, but you have to figure out who they all are, and so there's just makes for more players. So I'm not sure if I have a secret sauce in all that. Maybe Adam or Ashley, or you have that secret sauce.
I'll just add, no, there's no secret sauce. I mean, I think one of the great things about bluegrass, and one of the things we all love about it, is this giant canon and catalog of music that we all play. So you have to think, you have X number of artists performing showcases or concerts during the week. And if it would be easy enough for them to go to their publisher and say, hey, I want the songs that I've 100% written to be given gratis, which means no fee for those not familiar with the process. And that's great. But, co-writes and catalog, Bluegrass is known for cover songs or reinterpreting different music. So then you have to reach out to those people because it's about the publishing and not the artist. So it makes it a little bit more difficult. I mean, even working at Rounder, sometimes when our artists do a song that they did not write, we have to track down the songwriters and the publishers. It's definitely a long process, and there's not really, unfortunately, an easy fix to any of it. Adam, I don't know if you want to add any to that. I know you deal with this too.
Yeah, maybe just a protocol when you have to do something like this where there just has to be is this song easy to clear? Then it's okay to perform it. It just has to be done in advance rather than do the performance and then try to get the license. So there might be like, if the band wrote the songs, it's easy to do. If you're doing outside songs, it's harder to do. You might not be able to do those for this performance. Yes, it can be done, but making it easy is not always easy because, some songs have 6 publishers on one song. So it can get really intense, but it's something to work on.
Okay. Excuse me there, folks. I've got a question here from Jamie Katz. Are there guidelines for people to apply for the Arnold Schultz Fund or a timetable for when such guidelines will be available? Paul?
Yeah, Jamie, I would direct you over to the IBMA Foundation. While we are certainly part of that umbrella, it's an IBMA umbrella, if you will. That is an IBMA Foundation initiative. They are the granting arm of our world, and they've done an amazing job putting that pulling that fund together and announcing all of that. So I would go over to their website to see those guidelines for sure. So it's just been launched this year, so I'm sure they'll have information. Or you can contact Nancy Cardwell-Webster. So she's the executive director for the foundation, and she can certainly answer questions on that as well. So big props to them for that, and for the Sally Ann Forrester scholarship as well for women in bluegrass. So important steps, no doubt.
Folks, we just have a couple minutes left. And Paul, I just wanted to ask you if you want to give any sort of closing remark. We have to, because our resources are limited as to Zoom meetings and how they can do them. We'll have to sign off here. We can't go over. Paul, anything close? Oh, Michelle, you have your hand is up. The floor is now yours.
I just want to make an update because I have seen in the chat, the community chat, how strong a reaction to the idea of us making a statement about COVID safety. And so I want to just say Claire Armbruster, Joe Newberry, and Adam and I have agreed we're going to have a meeting to try to start the exploration of that in advance of this board meeting next Wednesday. So we'll meet Monday. If anyone else on the board would like to join us, you may, but we'll help kind of help that exploration happen given the timeliness of having a board meeting next week. So I just wanted to, we already have an update.
Thank you. And thank you all for taking the leadership on that. I appreciate it.
Well, and I just want to, again, thank everyone who's participating through Swap Card in this meeting, through the entire conference, for everybody going to the festival and participating. Odd year. Our hearts are out to each and every one of you going through a challenging year. And we hear you loud and clear. We hope that this virtual world of bluegrass has been a bit of an oasis for you in the midst of all this, and so that we can help serve this community as an association in a powerful way. And we appreciate all of your feedback today through this town hall. It's an important mechanism to hear your comments and suggestions, and so that we know what's on your mind. So just big thank you to everybody.
Well, thank you, Paul. And I want to say thanks to all of our board members, and I appreciate you all being here, and I appreciate all the members that came and joined and participated. Even if you just lurked and just watched what we did, it's still great to have you here. We really appreciate it. And it's time to get on with the show. And I just want to say thanks one more time, and farewell from the town hall meeting.
that there's ways